Sorry, monsieur.
Not at all. It was at least the third time since the corner of Boulevard Richelieu that she had lost her balance, bumping into him with her bony shoulder and crushing her string bag full of groceries against his thigh. She apologized automatically, neither embarrassed nor genuinely sorry, then carried on gazing straight ahead of her with a calm and determined expression. Maigret took no offense. It was almost as if it amused him to be jostled. That morning he was in a mood to take everything light-heartedly. He had had the good fortune to catch an older bus with a rear platform, in itself a source of great satisfaction. These buses were becoming more and more infrequent, since they were gradually being withdrawn from use, and soon he would be obliged to tap out his pipe before being enclosed in one of the huge modern vehicles inside which you feel imprisoned. The same buses with platforms had been in circulation when he had first arrived in Paris almost 40 years earlier, and in those days he had never tired of taking one along the large shop-lined boulevards on the Madeleine-Bastille line. That had been one of his first discoveries. That, and the café terraces. He had never tired of the terraces either, where you could sit in front of a glass of beer and watch the ever-changing sights of the street. Another source of wonder in that first year, by the end of February, you could go out without an overcoat. Not every day, but some of the time, and the buds were beginning to swell along certain avenues, especially Boulevard Saint-Germain. These memories reached him in waves, because this was another year when spring was early, and that morning he had left home without his overcoat. He felt as light as the sparkling air. The colours of the shops, the food stalls, the women's dresses were all bright and cheerful. He was not thinking of anything in particular, just a few disconnected little thoughts. At 10 o'clock, his wife would be having her third driving lesson. This was an unexpected, even amusing turn of events. He could not have said how they'd reached the decision. When Maigret was a young police officer, it had been out of the question for them to afford a car. Back then, such a thing was inconceivable. Once the years had gone by, he had never seen the need for one. It was too late to learn to drive. Too many things were going through his head. He wouldn't notice a red light or would stamp on the brake instead of the accelerator. But it would be nice on Sundays to be able to drive out to Meung-sur-Loire and their little house there. They had made their minds up recently on an impulse. His wife had protested with a laugh. "You can't mean that learning to drive at my age?" "I'm sure you'll make a very good driver." And now she was on her third lesson and as nervous as a girl about to sit the baccalaureate. How did it go? "Instructor is very patient." The woman standing next to him on the bus presumably couldn't drive. So why had she gone to do her food shopping on Boulevard Voltaire when she must live in a different neighbourhood? One of life's intriguing little mysteries. She was wearing a hat, something else that was becoming unusual, especially in the morning. Her string bag contained a chicken, butter, eggs, celery, leeks, and something hard lower down that kept bumping his thigh with every jolt of the bus. Potatoes, no doubt. Why take the bus to go far from home to buy such ordinary groceries of a kind to be found in every district of Paris? Perhaps she had once lived on Boulevard Voltaire, and being used to the tradesmen there had remained faithful to them. To his right, a young man was smoking a pipe that was too short, too thick, and thus badly balanced, which obliged him to clamp his jaws on it. Young men almost always choose a pipe that's too short and thick. The passengers travelling on the platform were closely packed together. That woman should have gone to sit down inside the bus. Look, whiting for sale in a fishmonger's on Rue du Temple. It was a long time since he'd eaten whiting. Why was it that, in his mind, whiting, too, was associated with a spring? Everything was spring-like today, including his mood. And never mind that the woman with the chicken was staring fixedly ahead, prey to problems that did not trouble ordinary mortals. "Sorry." Not at all. He didn't have the courage to say to her, instead of being a nuisance to everyone, "Why don't you go and sit down inside with your shopping?" He could read the same thought in the blue eyes of a bulky man wedged between himself and the conductor. They understood each other. The conductor, too, gave an imperceptible shrug of his shoulders, a sort of freemasonry between men. It was amusing. The street stalls, especially those laden with vegetables, spilled out over the pavements. The green and white bus had to weave its way through the crowd of housewives, typists, and clerks hurrying to their offices. Life was sweet.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.